Okay, cool. So far we've been talking about, hey, you guys, just start making figures and everything, and just sort of, get used to it and everything, and that's cool. But now that we've gone a couple weeks of you guys becoming familiar with how to say generate a bar chart or a line plot or whatever, now we want to start getting a bit more professional, right? So we got the basic mechanics. I know how to make, column A and B show up on my graph, right? So now we want to start working on making it better, tighter. So when we look at this, what are some thoughts about this particular figure, this particular graph? I think good, bad, indifferent. What do you guys think?
There's the date with the x-axis, which is incorrect. That doesn't tell us anything.
Okay, so there's something funky with the x-axis. Okay, good. What else? Yeah, y-axis labeled y-axis. Good.
We have no idea what it's displaying.
Don't know what it's displaying. So we don't know what the units are. We don't know what the measurement is. Okay, good. What else? Yeah. So this is my illustration slide. So I put polishing a figure. That's obviously not the real title, but Kale's right. So there isn't a real appropriate title for that data. Okay, so good. Yeah, so labels on X and Y are a little bit funky. The variable tick marks are a little bit funky, right? Okay, so a general thing that most of us do is we use these tools. It could be whatever our graphics a tool of choice is, but we use that to do some exploration, as you guys have. Hey, does this go up, down? Is this positively correlated, negatively correlated? We kind of play around for a little bit, get a sense of it. Okay, then we maybe go back, adjust our data, and then we kind of start to work on the visualization. So let me ask, I don't know, Angelica, can you read this easily? Kind of. Okay, so not so much, right? Not so much. So so this is an indication that this is separate from if it's right or wrong. It's very small, right? The font is very small. The font is hard to see. Okay, so not labeled exactly correct in terms of the quantity, the technical thing. A. B, not big enough to see easily, right? We kind of have to squint, or you have to walk a little closer to the screen, or something like that, yeah? So there's a couple things here. So one, there's the technical side of it, and then two, there's the aesthetic side of it, the ease with which we can read that. And so both of those we can fix. Now this first part, which is the grid line, the graph frame, the actual plot where the line goes up, down, so that's we don't know how to do that, right? So we're having the program do that for us, right? And so it's given us this. But all this other stuff, all the labels, all the legend, all that kind of stuff, we don't necessarily need the graphing program to do that, right? We can make it do it, but we can use some other tools. So a common tool, does anybody use Adobe Illustrator? One, okay. So a lot of professional data visualization, formal folks, if they're doing this for their job, they will use that as one of their main tools for polishing. And while you're more than welcome to use that, just like GIS and everything else, that's yet another skill set, and we're trying to, I know it seems like we're giving you guys new programs every week and that kind of stuff, but we're trying to minimize that, right? We're not trying to do that every single week. So so while you're welcome to use any of that type of tool, a simple tool that you all have that's very easy to use is PowerPoint, right? Another example of the Microsoft Office suite, right? Again, similar to Google Slides, but just like we talked about Excel, don't use Google Slides, right? So you can do this in there. It's not as good. You don't have as much control. You don't have as much power. You don't have as much just control on what comes out the other end. Okay, so for this example, we're going to use PowerPoint. But just realize it's just one tool to manage stuff. Okay, So what I've done now is I've gone in and I've made my figure. I've created my figure and I've gotten it, you know, the axes the right size and the, you know, whatever I needed to adjust, and got that done. And then I've exported that. Exported that as a PDF, exported that as a JPEG, whatever the option you want is. And now I've inserted this on a blank slide. So that's what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at my one slide that is just this one graphic object. And so now what I can do is now I can start to play, and there's different options. So what I tend to do and so in this case I just grabbed the whole thing, right, and threw it in here just to illustrate that for you guys. So we have two types of basic graphing approaches in the computer world. We have vector-based objects and we have raster-based objects. So people that have had GIS, you probably can figure out what those two things are. So can you explain to the rest of us what vector-based graphics versus raster-based graphics are?
Rasters are based on pixels, whereas vectors are like shaped or like larger.
Right. So when we look at this computer screen, your phone, whatever our display screen is, we're actually looking at, at some point when we get back down to it, it's a little teeny pixel, a little teeny bit of information, right? And it's going to be blue or white or whatever the color is, right? And we have basically many of those things that stitch together that our eyes perceive as a unified image, rather than a bunch of little teeny tiny pinpoints, okay? So a raster-based image is where every single X and Y point across this space has a value. That's red, that's blue, that one's sort of blue, that kind of thing, all right? So every cell has a particular data value. Vector-based objects are not like that at all. Vector-based and so let's take, for example, this x-axis, okay? If I made this as a pixel, if this is a pixel type image, I would put a dot here, right? Like this little, like my pinky is in the lower left corner, that would be, registered as black. And the one right below it would be white, and the one right to the right would then be black. And the one right to the right would be that, right? And so it comes together to look like it's a line. That's the raster type version. The vector-based version is much simpler, and so it takes much less space, and it's much faster to render. It's much quicker. And so in that case, what I do is I have this x and y coordinate where my where the origin is here, and I say, this x and y, that's point 1, and then way over here, this other point, I know what that x and y is, and I record that, and I just say, go to that point 1, go to that point 2, and draw a line between them. Boom. And so it shows up. Vector-based objects scale really, really well. So if I had a billboard in downtown LA, and I wanted to show you all my figure, I want to put this up on my figure, and I had a pixel-based image, and I optimized it for my computer screen on Dr. A's laptop, and then took that pixel-based thing and threw it up on the big screen. Since there's way more pixel space up there, it'll get stretched, but it'll look blurry. Right? Everybody with me on that? If it's a pixel-based thing, I just say, hey, dude, I go to, I don't know what this would be, 10, 100, and start there and go over to here, and it'll be a nice crisp line. It doesn't matter if it's the size of my phone or the size of the billboard. Cool? So vector-based versus raster-based. So Photoshop is a raster-based thing. Illustrator is a vector-based tool. PowerPoint is a vector-based tool. So vector is just a lot easier, it's simpler, faster, renders cleaner, and it's easier to scale and make it look good. Make sense? Everybody with me so far? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, now that I've captured the important graphics, the quantitative stuff, the spacing of the grids, the where the error bars are and the lines and everything, that's all good. So I'm going to keep that, but now I want to mess with the other things. And so there's a couple different options I can do. One, I can grab my image and I can crop it. I can clip out all the crud on the sides. Or I could grab and so this is a white background just for the purposes of us today, but it could be black or blue. It doesn't really matter. By default, most of your figures will export a default background color for the background color of the graphing plane. So for most of you, your computer is probably set to have a white background. And when you do that, it looks like a white background. And it might look to you like it's blank, but it's actually white. That's actually an option you can pick. You can actually make it be clear if you wanted to. So all these things, as you'll start to play with it, you'll start to figure out you can tweak them. So again, I just grabbed like a standard output graph. Boom, didn't do anything tweaking. But as we go forward, you can start to see, hey, there's some extra tricks I can do. So you'll see in the next example I show you after this, I actually told it not to add any axis labels on it. So I don't need to clean it. But in this case, I got my guy. So I can come in here, do a couple different things. Now I can't do this on the presentation mode because I need to be able to edit it. But so I can come up here. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see. Or actually, first let me do this. Okay, so here we go. If I click this, I click on this, again, I'm in PowerPoint, and now the whole area of my object is selected, right? So if I come up here and I say picture format, I get this tool up here that says crop. So I'm just going to want to get rid of those numbers that I don't like or that don't look good, okay? So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to hit the crop tool, and notice now it's gone from the little white boxes. They're still there. But now we have these additional black bars. And so those are cropping bars. Okay? So now I can grab, let's say, this corner dude and crop out those x-axis numbers and then squeeze in here and crop out these y dudes. And then I hit that, and now they're gone. Right? Half a second. Now I can insert a text box, and I can add in those numbers that I want to add in, right? And so I can go text box, and again, let's have a look. So we have origin here, or whatever that value is. Then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So I can come up here and I can maybe make this, I forget what this was, I don't know, I'm just making it, doesn't matter now, 300. Okay. I can make this guy be 300. And maybe I want to make it a bit, maybe that's too small. Maybe I want to make it bigger, 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 whatever the case is, right? So, Angelica, can you read that easily now, or is that hard to read? A lot easier to read? Okay. And then we can kind of say, okay, and again, I'm not paying attention to the units. I don't remember what they were supposed to be, but whatever. Let's say maybe I want to skip every other one. Oops, excuse me. Maybe I want to skip every other one. So maybe I want to do this. Click the outside box, hit copy, paste, and now I got this number. And make this dude be 600. And then make this guy be 900. All right? And then maybe make this guy be 1200, right? And so on and so forth. Now, as I'm typing these in, have a look. The 1200 looks a little bit lower than the 300, which is a little bit lower than the 600. And it looks maybe a little sloppy. Super easy to clean that up. So I can just come right here. First, I want to make sure, here's my tick mark. So I want to make sure that, let's say maybe this center white box is right over the tick mark, so it's the right distance, right? So make sure this guy's the right spot, this guy's the right spot, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I got them lined up the correct way, right, left, but now maybe this one's a little bit high, so I can select this dude, select this dude, select this dude, select this dude, and I'm doing that by clicking on one, holding the Shift key down, and then clicking the next one, and the next one, and the next one, so that I'm selecting all of them at the same time. Now they're all selected, and this last tool I'm going to use real quick is just up here called Arrange. And when I click this, I come down and I get into the Align menu. And here I can align stuff all to the left, center, right, up, down, bottom. So watch, if I did, so now I can just say, hey dude, align it to the, I don't know, the top. Okay, they all look good. If I'd said align them all to the left, they would have all jumped over there. That would be kind of ugly, right? And I can just Command Z undo it. And so with those, that simple tool, crop, insert a text box, and align, I can very quickly add back in all this stuff. I can add in a legend. I can add on a descriptor of what this blue variable is, and so on and so forth, right? And obviously we can, just like with all these formula and stuff that we're learning, you can layer on, add. We could add an arrow. We can do it, and you can start to get real fancy. The point is, for very, very simple, very, very easily, I can clean up my figure and make it look really nice. So one of the reasons we're using these graphing tools is to generate these lines and all this kind of good stuff, because we're not going to do that by hand. But some of the aesthetics, is it the right size? Is it the right font? Is it the right, maybe it looks too cluttered when I have those tick marks the way they, right? It's way easier to just get the essentially plotting elements, but then to use some of these vector-based editors to layer on the figure title, to layer on the all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? So very quickly, I can make my graph that was maybe not horrible, but not so great, very quickly add on an axis, variable label, legend, all that kind of stuff. And the nice thing about this is it's very, very easy to change very quickly, right? So sometimes when we're using our graphing program, we could also make the graphing program do this, but it might be a little bit. And we might go and output it. And then we get that output, insert it in our Word document or something, because you're getting ready to submit it to Professor Spies or me, and you're like, it's a little low. Okay, now I got to go back to the original thing and then re-graph it and then re-spit it out and then think about, still not quite being. Whereas this, I'm seeing it in real time, right? I have direct editing of this stuff. And so I would just maybe make a nice PowerPoint and then just be using that to throw my figures in for the rest of the semester, and then I just have them there. And if they actually get deleted, I can just grab those. Or if in some feedback, maybe we're going to do some revisions. Maybe your bud, your peer feedback, or one of us says, you should try this other font or try this other color. You can do it in like half a second or something, right? As opposed to going back, replotting, rechanging, going to the sub-menu, pushing that thing, what have you. And again, this is how many people make professional figures. Not every single draft figure. We're not talking about the draft figure. We're talking about once we get it in a good spot to make it the nice final polishing. This is how people do that. And so again, what I typically then do is I'll export it oftentimes with a lot of that text just totally not on there at all. So I don't even need a crop. I just send out the naked figure with just the graphing elements, the axis, the tick marks, whatever, and then just sort of re-add in. So I'll make the whole figure nice and whatever it is. Maybe make a draft copy, spit that out so I remember, okay, it goes from 0 to 100, or the units are 30 to 75, or whatever it is. So I have that for visual reference, but then I'll export a naked one with no text, and then I'll add all that text in myself. Make sense? Okay. All right, cool. Professor Spies, anything to add on that general approach?